Let's talk JMMA with Charlie Jewett from sogo-kaku.com. This is a podcast about the deep end of Japanese combat sports scene. I'm your host, Shu Hirata from On the Road Management. Now, let's begin. Hey, good evening, Charlie.
Good morning, Shu. How you doing?
Good. So how's the Olympics there?
It's awesome, except I think, not to go right into negative news, but I think Tokyo has higher corona numbers now than they've ever had before.
I know, it's like over 4,000 now, right?
Yeah. But I don't think it's because of the Olympics. I think it's just because it's been going on for so long that people just completely stopped caring.
Now, this concerns me about the September RIZIN 30th show, because now they're saying 5,000 people at max, right? And
I mean, September has Rising, Deep Jewels, Pancrase, Shooto, K1. There's so many events planned for September, and now they're starting to do stricter lockdown procedures.
right. I mean,
There's no sign of the numbers slowing down.
right. I mean, do you think that they will be able to do the show? I mean, I don't think government will shut them down already, right? Because tickets is already on sale.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think they'll sell it down because I feel like there's this weird attitude now where people just don't really care anymore.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people, like, what kind of vaccination rates in Japan, like, total?
Super low.
Oh,
People are starting to get their first rounds of vaccinations or the appointments for it, but it's still really low. I got my first round through my wife's work. That's like the quickest way to get it. Other than that, you have to wait for your age range. But I think people are starting to get vaccinated, but it's not anything like any other country that's already vaccinated their population.
mm-hmm. Well, but so let's hope that RIZIN 30 will go forward, right? And and I'm hearing that. I mean, I know for the fact that the tickets are selling really well. Like a section S already sold out. And
yeah, because as people will know, a lot of the fighters sell tickets themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of alarmed because one day Emi Fujino was just like, hey, if you want to buy tickets, you can buy them through me. And then like next day it was literally like, I'm sorry, anyone that tried to order S tickets from me, they're already gone.
Yeah,
no
exactly. It went fast. And yeah, and actually all the fighter makes 10% of the ticket sales back, regardless how many you sell. So, and on top of that, you don't really actually approach the customers directly. You know, as we talked about, they can just put in the code of each fighter so they get their money. And also, I can reveal this right now. Last Friday, everybody who fought on last two RIZIN shows got paid, because most of the Japanese show, they pay purse to the fighters at the end of the following month, not like 24 hours later, like in the other shows. But anyway, and I realized that during the broadcast, you could do, what do you call that? Like throwing coins to
the tips. They have like a crazy thing. They have like all this new stuff they're trying. There's like a thing where people can tip fighters while the fights are going on.
Right. And I was surprised because I was looking at all this wire came in, and it was way more than we expected. So I'm like, really? This extra money, right? So I had to, of course, RIZIN, and I realized, so there is a tipping thing, and so fighters are actually making extra. Even like low-level fighters are making, I would say, extra, maybe 2,000-3,000. So that's not bad.
That's cool, because I feel like RIZIN is really, especially during the pandemic, been exploring options for fighters to get paid more.
Right.
So that's cool to hear that they're getting paid more through the tipping option.
Exactly. Then actually, I wanted to talk about, did you realize that RIZIN put up a new article on their website? They're asking sponsors. Like
really?
Yeah.
So does that mean that their older sponsors are leaving?
I think it's just that they need more sponsors. As simple as that, I think,
Well, especially if they have to keep doing these 5,000 seat deals, they're just not making the money off of ticket sales.
Right. So this is a page they just posted yesterday, and they even explain what's being offered and everything else, which is actually rare, right, to see this on any MMA website.
I think it's rare. It's really rare on any website, especially in Japan. But I guess it makes sense. This is the first I'm seeing it, but it makes sense because I would say that their crowdfunding campaign was a giant success.
Yes.
And now they realize, hey, if we give people something, they'll gladly pay for it. And so, I mean, I think it's a great idea.
And let's quickly talk about additional cards for RIZIN 30. I know for the fact it's being more matches are going to be announced very soon. And I think we can expect many featherweights fights to happen.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm hearing only a rumor, but even though they have said that they were going to do title fight for Souza, but I think that's going to be pushed back to the next show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that card is already pretty stacked, right?
Exactly. It's 5,000 people only, so they have to kind of tighten up the budget.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think Sakakibara has mentioned he's adding more shows, right, this year.
He has like some ideas. I think he said he wanted to try some smaller things, which is kind of interesting to see what he does with that.
Yeah, I think what he's trying to do is like something similar to what Abema TV is doing, like almost like a studio show for pay-per-view only.
I think he got some ideas from the UFC Fight Island kind of idea.
Yeah,
where you could just have not low budget, but you could just save a lot of money and film it in a smaller venue.
Sure.
And then just sell it exclusively on pay-per-view.
Now, I'm just going to have to add this, that when you mentioned the Island fight, that the first promotion who ever did the Island fight was Bodok fight.
Was that the tape delay?
No, so.
Was those the tape delayed fights?
Yeah, it was tape delay fight. We had the 48 fights on the beach 3 days in a row, and I think we tape delayed it like a month and a half later. Like we're not allowed to talk about it and blah blah blah. But just to the hardcore fans, I really want you to go back and look at this Bodok fight, beach fight, because you will see very interesting faces like Cain Velasquez, or like
Was it Megumi Fuji involved in the Bodog?
Huh?
Wasn't Megumi Fuji?
Yes,
involved.
Fuji was in there because I was working with Bodok, so I know the whole story. But anyway, so we signed a guy like Roy Nelson back then. He was a BJJ fighter. He didn't even know how to strike. And it's so funny. He was on the beach, so the half of the ring was like a sunny, and half the ring was shade. So it was really hot on the sunny side. So when Roy Nelson picked up his opponent, he actually walked over to the shade side and slammed it.
So that's crazy because I mean that would have been a long time ago. I mean,
yes,
because Roy Nelson took the strangest route to the UFC, so that's kind of funny to hear about that.
And also you got a guy like Eddie Alvarez, Chael Sonnen.
Oh, wow.
All these guys are in there. You'd be surprised to actually go back and watch that Bodok fight.
How did they find all those people? Did they have like a connection with some of the?
Me and Miguel Iturrate really went out and signed a lot of people.
Very interesting. That's a lot of big names.
I signed Jose Aldo and Miguel Torres too. But Jose Aldo, it was the end of the Bodok fight era, so the Bodok really couldn't come up to the show. There was an internal problem going on that I was being criticized for offering too much money for the unknown Brazilians. And some of the executive called me and said, "Oh, well, Jose Aldo he's nobody, dime a dozen, no talent." I'm like, listen. So what happened was I had to convince Pancras, which was the Bodok's partner at the time, to take Jose Aldo as a Bodok partner.
He won that fight by soccer kicks, I think. That was a crazy fight.
I think didn't he fight Shoji on that fight, I think.
Yeah, but it was like a crazy soccer kick. It was like a crazy knockout, if I remember correctly.
Thiago Silva, too, on the same show I had the book, which is another fighter I signed under the Bodog, but we couldn't come up with a fight for him.
Where was that beach that the Bodog happened at?
Costa Rica.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Mr. Calvin Ayre, the founder of Bodog, is still alive and living in Antigua, living with all these bikini women and, doing thing. So
he's having a good time.
Yeah. But anyway, so let's go back to this RIZIN. And I want to talk about this since you mentioned Sakakibara tested positive for COVID-19.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting asterisk that was kind of leaked out. That was like, oh, by the way, Sakakibara had COVID last October.
Right.
It was just subtly slid under the radar.
Right. But I think it was interesting in the sense that this was scooped by the magazine called Friday, which is a regular mainstream magazine, which everybody knows. Right. And they talked about this happened in October now, which is almost a year later, right?
Right.
And they even used the photo of Sakakibara with a little bit of a mask down from his mouth, like I'm showing right now. But this is what I think. This has to be an inside tip. Somebody in RIZIN must have leaked it to the Friday. No?
Well, it reminds me of It reminds me of like when they leaked the pictures of Tenshin and Kanasuke kissing, or they like leaked. It seemed like a story they probably wanted out, that they wanted people to know. I feel like.
Yeah, I know for the fact that we leaked that photo of Tenshin. So actually, this was done by a very bad person. So
no, but I feel like that whole photo, even the photo seemed like staged.
Yeah,
like,
almost right. Yeah,
it seemed like a photo that RIZIN was like, "Oh, the news is talking about us. This is great."
Now, is he getting criticized about this, like Sakakibara? Because I see a guy like Shinya Aoki was actually defended him, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Shinya Aoki has to be the most vocal guy in the Japanese MMA community. He has his like Voicey podcast thing. He writes articles that you have to pay to read. He is just daily updating, so he's kind of interesting. But I don't see like really any criticism on it. I think I see people like, oh, he had COVID, but it was so long ago. I don't really see people noticing it. And plus the timing of it, with the Olympics going on, I feel like everyone kind of has blinders on. And so it's just like, oh, that's interesting. And then they just kind of move on from it.
But I think some fans are criticizing him because it was like 2 days before he found the COVID, he was at the press conference with and everybody else. So he should have told at least the guys at the press conference. And also, I think the 5 staff at the merchandise store also got infected, right? From RIZIN.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. The merchandise shop is smaller than my kitchen. So there's no way that place was had air being pumped in and out. So yeah. Well, it also just makes sense. Like, oh, this is why he was so comfortable traveling all over the place a couple months ago, because he's already had COVID.
But that's, I mean, okay, so nobody's really criticizing him publicly, so that's good thing, right? I mean,
yeah, I think it's just more of like a curiosity. I haven't noticed any like outspokenness about it. I mean, yeah. All right, it's like up there with I think Sidario's twin brother kicked out of sumo for smoking weed. Yeah. So people are kind of like joking that he might fight for RIZIN soon.
Do you think
he it's like, I mean, hey, if he needs money, I mean, this is just like a tangent, but I don't care if people smoke weed or not, but like if your profession rule is if you get caught once doing this, we'll ban you for life.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like you shouldn't do it.
I mean, this is Japan. The country prohibits that, so you have to follow that, right? I mean,
yeah, especially like your job. It's like there's a whole track history. It's just like if you smoke this, you will be banned forever.
Yeah,
so, whatever. But yeah, I think we might see him in RIZIN. He's young enough, and RIZIN would love the twin brothers angle.
Yeah, exactly. And Sakakibara would love that. I think that probably what happened too. Now let's talk about this Sakakibara. As another comment, actually, I wanted to mention is this. He said that there's a chance that Tenshin Takeru will still happen end of this year. Yeah. Is anyone talking about this?
I think so, yeah, because there was actually, I saw there's the Gong article you pulled up, and it was actually in the Yahoo News. I was reading about it a couple days ago. And I don't know if this is like gamemanship.
Yeah.
Where he doesn't want to be blamed for the fight not happening. So he's just like giving K1 another opportunity to let the fight happen.
Sure.
And what do you think the odds of it actually happening are?
Well, this is what I know. I know for the fact that they have the December 29th, 30th, 31st at Saitama Super Arena. Because Saitama Super Arena, they will give you a priority rights to the guy who used it on the previous year. So they have the right to use those 3 days. Now, are they going to come up with 29th and 31st like you did 2 years ago, like a Bellator Japan show and the RIZIN show? I don't know, right? So I have a feeling that this 29th is the date that Sakakibara might give to Mega or whoever the neutral promotion is to make this fight happen.
I feel like if it was Tenshin Takeru, that'd almost be the fight you'd want to be the New Year's Eve fight.
I know.
But I guess there's the whole RIZIN pride thing where they want RIZIN to be on the New Year's Eve. But
no, exactly. Now, also, I think if you do 29th and 31st, maybe they could get a 2 broadcast dates from Fuji Television.
Or is it a genius move to do the Tenshin fight on the 29th because it has no other real competition on TV and it can dominate the ratings?
That too. And they can put up other top kickboxers in there too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If they are in shaking hands with the K1 and the RIZIN obviously has a good relationship with Rise, so that's like bringing all top guys.
Yeah, and I mean, we've gone over it before. We kind of gushed over it. I mean, this is the fight everybody wants to see. Just the other day, I just rewatched Takeru versus Koji, and like Takeru is such an exciting fighter, and I think he single-handedly kind of holds up K1. He's
definitely.
He's so popular.
Right.
And that if this fight was to happen, I think it'd be a huge deal. So I think
Sure.
that's why Sakakibara is trying to like leave the door open for it to happen.
Now, I think the biggest problem actually for this match is that I think it's the contract weight. Because Takeru usually fights around 155, right? Then Tenshin probably prefer like 135.
Right.
So where are we going to meet?
That's true. Plus, I mean, you got to think. I mean, you got to think Tenshin's such a competitive guy that he wants to do this.
He probably wants to.
And it'd be a huge crowning achievement for his kickboxing career before he moved into boxing. But that's kind of a big weight difference. I mean,
it is a big step up, and it's actually
not like. I mean, Takeru would have to like lose actual muscle mass to make it down, and he's not a young guy anymore.
Takeru won't go down. I don't think so.
Yeah,
because it doesn't make sense. So I guess Tenshin has to
go up,
or
go up a little bit.
Closer, right? Yeah. But we'll see. I think what's so funny about it is like we always talk about this weight problem between those two, and all the Japanese promoters or managers or fighters, they say, "Oh, shoot, they're just going to argue till the day of the fight." That's what everybody tells me. But that doesn't make any sense to me because you don't sign bout agreement or any contract without making any decisions on weight, right? But
maybe in Japan, I don't know. I've heard some weird stories.
Yeah, Japan happens a lot. They're like, "Well, we'll discuss about weight later."
I mean, isn't there the famous Bob Sapp story where they wanted him to sign the contract after the fight happened?
Exactly right. I mean, back in old days, I've heard some American fighter told me that Japanese manager came with the contract, then put the hands on where how much he's getting paid. He's like, "Don't look at this. You don't have to look at it. Just sign it."
It's not even subtle though. I feel like you'd be better at doing hide in plain sight. Like as soon as someone put their hand over the number, I'd be immediately curious what it was.
Yeah, right. So this fight's gonna. I think I have a feeling this fight's gonna happen, but they're gonna argue and have a big problem till the day of the fight about the contract weight.
Man, I think it's kind of an interesting position because I think K1 needs it more. And so K1 is probably going to ultimately bend to make it happen because they need it to happen more than RIZIN and RIZE does.
I think so too. But again, K1 is very popular on Abema TV, right? Much popular than MMA.
Not necessarily. I mean,
really?
I was looking at the rankings earlier today, and K1's actually lower than Shooto and RIZE. Yeah,
it's sad because it used to be much higher.
Which just makes me think it must just peak whenever Takeru fights.
Ah, okay. So it depends.
Yeah, I think that must be what the issue is.
I
don't know what they base their what their rankings are based off of. But I was looking at like they rank it based on like the free shows and the paid shows. And in both platforms, K1 was less popular than RIZE and Shooto.
Wow. Now, how often do you watch Abema TV?
More and more, actually. It's one of those things that I used to forget it kind of existed because I feel like Abema targets younger people.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
it's very obvious in the content, but I mean, there's a ton of stuff on there, and it's really popular because I had some time, and it was like I think it was last Sunday, and Shooto had their show on the 25th, and it was on Abema. I was like, I'll watch it. And I mean, there's like I was watching the Satomi Takano fight, and there's 80,000 people watching it live.
Wow. Okay.
So I mean, they get a lot of viewers for their shows. And Shooto's not even. Now I will laugh because I was looking at the ratings because I was curious where one championship was, and one championship's ranked 16th of their combat shows.
Really?
Like, it is nowhere. Shooto it went. RIZE is ranked number 1, and then it goes. Shooto is actually ranked number 2.
That's and because K1 used to pull up big numbers there. So
then the ratings were RIZE, Shooto, Dreamers, Fighting Proxy War, then K1's reality show, and then K1, and a bunch of pro wrestling shows. And then 16th is one. So I mean, ONE FC is not doing real great.
Wow. Well, here's what it is. So that's why you just mentioned this Dreamers, which is a reality show done by Abema TV, and EXFight, which is the gym owned by LDH, which is the entertainment company. It's all operated by Mr. Yushin Okami and Takaya there.
Yeah.
Now,
I think it helps people to like kind of explain it. The reason it's called EXFight is because there's LDH, is that what they're called?
Yeah, LDH, right.
LDH is a big group that also handles Exile.
Very big.
So it's actually Exile Fight. And then they've started all these projects where they want to like help people. The reason they call it dreamers. They want to help young people achieve their dreams.
Yes.
And so they have the EXFight is their MMA show, but they also have other shows around the same thing for like different kinds of like musicians and things like that.
Right.
And EXFight, the whole purpose of it is to produce, like if you read the intro, it's all about MMA had this big boom in Japan, but now it's kind of shifted. And now they want to create a platform for young fighters to develop and kind of train under these veterans. And so the whole Dreamers show is kind of this predicated on creating young talent in Japan, which is a cool idea.
Yes. And they have been like actually discovering very interesting talent too.
Yeah.
You know? Now, they're doing this, I guess they just put the full-size cage on EXFight Gym, and they're doing the show called EXFight on Abema TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, you'd be surprised, in Japan, it's hard to find a gym with a full cage.
Oh, I mean, you laugh, but I mean, it's crazy. You'll go to like...
oh, I know.
I remember going to Takeru Gomi's room, and his gym wasn't even as big as a cage.
Exactly. His gym is like small as my closet kind of stuff, right? It was so small.
And that was the whole thing about the Triforce gym that Hody just made. Was like the whole thing was like, we have a cage.
Right.
It's like having a cage in a I think off the top of my head, outside of Triforce, Crazy Bee is the only gym I know of that has a cage.
Right. And also,
I think no other gym has one.
Right. The other gyms has like really, really tiny cage, or just the one side of the cage. That's it.
Yeah, like AACC, which you're familiar with, they just have a wall with a corner on it to practice working on a cage, but they don't have an actual cage.
Exactly. Now, but as you can see on this, the EXFight is actually located in a very pristine, good area of Tokyo, and it's of course is owned by LDH. It's a big, big entertainment company, and it looks very nice. And now, what do you think about these shows, EXFight, and also you mentioned Breakdown, which is happening at Triforce, which is aired by Abema TV? Are they catching any attentions?
I think so, especially because I'm older. I'm 33, but I mean, I got to remember, like, Abema TV is mainly geared towards young people. Right. Number one example is Rise is incredibly popular on Abema, and Rise is just, you go to their shows, all young people. So it's like what people are watching fights on an app on their phone for free, and those are young people. And so I think they're getting really popular, especially Breakdown has Mikuru involved. Right. And it seems like everything he touches kind of turns to gold a little bit. And this also, I think, is getting a lot of attention just because it's young people. And I kind of like it because it's kind of, I always felt like Yoshino Kami didn't get a fair shake in Japan because he fought so long outside of Japan. And so I feel like this is helping build him up a little bit.
Definitely.
And getting him the recognition he deserves in Japan.
Right. And of course, he's in one championship. And, of course, because of COVID, he hasn't get a fight over a year and a half now. But now, he got called out by Alan this past weekend. So now they're talking about Kami. Right? But anyway, so to go back to this Breakdown and EXFight, the Breakdown is only a fight that take 1 minute per fight.
Right. It's like Mikuru has like this whole like street fighting identity. They always show that video of him fighting with someone on the streets. I think it's his brother. Is it him and Kai fighting on the streets? They always show a video, and it's 1 minute fights, and they kind of get like famous people involved sometimes. Like Shibatar came in and did a fight. And I think when it's just 1 minute, they can get older fighters and then get like these young street fighters that think they're tough involved. And it's picking up steam and it's developing talent because I went to the last Deep show, and at the last Deep show, people from both events were fighting for Deep. And so it is developing talent because people from Breakdown were fighting in Deep, and people from Yoshino Kami and Yoshino Kami's gym is legit. Because what's interesting is the EXFight is the fight league, but it's associated with a gym. There's a literal actual gym that Yoshino Kami is now teaching at as part of this program. So it seems like it's actually pretty committed to developing talent.
Yeah, they are. And actually, where I look at it is EXFight's really serious about developing talent that hopefully maybe we can create the UFC champion. But Breakdown, when I look at it, it was like only 1 minute fight, and it's more geared towards the YouTube kind of viewers, right?
Oh, it's 100%. It's 100% going back to like Mikuru's Outsiders roots of him having this like philosophy of being like a real street fight doesn't last longer than a minute, and he thinks that
he's going to develop a real MMA fighter.
Well, the guy that came from Breakdown lost it deep. So, but I don't think. I think it's all.
I think this is the argument I think people are going to have in New Year's Eve, because I have a feeling it's going to be like Naoki Inoue versus Kai Asakura, right? Like people talk about Asakura, even though Mikuru is street fighter, Kai is not really a street fighter.
No, they're very different. They're very different personality-wise.
He only did sumo karate 2 years while I was in elementary school, and never really did MMA till age 19. On the other hand, Naoki's been training since first grade. He's been doing kids kickboxing and kids jiu-jitsu, whatever that is. He's been competing all these competitions, right? So I'm thinking like guy like EXFight, I think I like it. They have the auditions, they have like a grappling, like all this technique necessary for MMA to develop fighters. But breakdowns is all about like a minute.
Well, it's very different because I mean, like breakdown has that kind of outsiders kind of like, do these people actually train? Are they just like, is it like those old Iron Man fights?
Right. So I mean, most of the sports, when you really compare two athletes, between one who's been training since first grade and who has been on many competitions versus, you know what I mean, like who has only been trained for like 5 years, who's going to win that kind of stuff, you know? So I actually think it's very interesting what they do, but I don't know if the breakdown is going to actually create the legitimate MMA.
Well, I don't think that's the purpose for it. I think they have very different purposes.
Yeah.
I think breakdown's more of just like an idea that young people have a short attention span. So let's give them 1 minute fights while they're riding the train. Right. Whereas EXFight created a gym, brought in two of the most famous and highly decorated Japanese fighters to be coaches there, and is actually trying to train and produce talent.
Right. And there's one of the guy named Nakamura who made a debut in Shooto and won by high kick, right? So and was ex-world champion on wrestling and stuff like that. So I'm very looking forward to the interesting talent coming out of EXFight or Dreamers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's always great. It's always great to see these new avenues developing because you just need to get shaken up every now and then. Right.
Now, since I mentioned this, now I think another partner of Abema TV, obviously, and One Championship is the Shooto.
Right? Yes.
Shooto just had the show, and they had the new champion, featherweight, Sasuke.
Right. Now, that was actually the show I was watching last weekend.
Now, what do you think about him? Because now people are talking about, is he going to RIZIN, or does he have a chance to be UFC, kind of stuff. Just like the other flyweight title, you know? Yeah. They get excited when you see a new champion.
Well, he's good. I mean, he's got a good record. He's somewhat young. And I just don't like the idea. I think people jump too quick to throw these people at too high levels. And I wouldn't want to see him in like anything like the UFC yet. I think it'd be too fast. I mean, do you think it's better for him to develop to go up a level, develop a little more, then go to the UFC?
You know, that's a very, very hard question because I've seen some fighter I thought is not that well, but some people shines in the octagon.
That's true.
Yeah.
Some people love that. Some people, when you like put them in a hard situation, they really rise to the occasion.
And also, I also believe in the theory that opportunity, if you say no, they may not knock on your door the second time.
Well, if they're asking for him to come, I would go.
Right.
But I wouldn't want to say no to them because then they may never ask you again.
Sure, exactly.
Probably the Rin Nakai situation happening now.
Talk about it later, but I think bottom line is like if you're athletes, if you're an MMA fighter, if you get a call from UFC, 99% of the time you will say yes.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. You'd have to because you'd be afraid that they'd never ask you again.
Now, to answer your question about is it better for him to maybe go to RIZIN and do a couple of fights to develop himself? Maybe yes, because I'll tell you this, because RIZIN, most of the time they do only single fight contract. Or even 2 fights at most. So it's not long. So it's like 6 months. So it's not a bad idea to get experience on the big shows. And you will fight more credible guys, right? And the bigger shows.
Yeah.
But
or to find some way to invest in himself and actually go to the U.S. and train
Mm-hmm.
and prepare for actually fighting there, because I've heard so many horror stories about the jet lag and everything just screwing these guys over on their debut fights.
Right. But you know what about the jet lag and stuff like that? For example, like usually fighter comes in on Tuesday, the UFC will pay, take care of 5 nights at the hotel. But however, UFC actually will allow you to come in a couple more nights early, so they will pay you up to 7 nights at the hotel. So we're talking about then if you really worry about jet lag and coming a little bit more early, and you're only thinking about picking up a couple nights of hotel tab. And this is what I think. I know jet lag is tough, but from what I see on non-American fighters that I've dealt with many, many times, most of the guys and girls who are successful in UFC, they don't really come in early. They're okay. No, they're okay. They come in like 5-6 days before, and they know how to adjust it. That's what I
know it's a drastically different situation, but I just have flashbacks of Verdum going to Mexico City a month early.
Oh, yeah.
And Velasquez coming in like 3 days before or something insane.
But I even discussed this with Kawajiri once. That I suggested, do you want to come in early? Like 3 weeks early to get rid of jet lag, get used to. You know what his answer is? I'll get more stressed out at this unknown place for 2 weeks. Can't see my wife, can't see my daughter. I can't see television I like. I don't know. Right. So it's actually stress. So
it just depends on the fighter, I guess.
It depends on the fighter.
Remember, because I was talking to Kana Watanabe, and she was talking to Shuri Kondo, who just talked to tell her about how much she hated flying to Chile because it was like I think it was like over 20 hours one way.
She should have just said no to the fight.
Exactly.
Fighters, they don't say no. Yeah. I mean, you're already under the contract to UFC. You can say no once or twice.
Especially when it's like a crazy event like that. If it's going to be a 20-hour flight,
right.
Say no.
This is what I think. By looking at many, many fighters, I'm always with them. Who sleeps well or taking a long nap will always do well. Most of the guys, it's not about the jet lag, and they just get so nervous. I know some guys who actually couldn't sleep for 3 days in a row before the fight. Wow. Yeah.
I just thought it was crazy because I remember Megumi Fuji and Hitomi Akano used to sleep before their fights. They take backstage sleeping. I'm like, that's absolutely insane. I'd be so nervous.
Right now, Mizugaki, Maximo Blanco, Mizuki, Naoki Inoue, they sleep so much. They almost like, are you sure you can sleep that much? Naoki sleeps in the dressing room too. So I guess I guess how they build. I mean, so back to this jet lag situation. Yeah, I think for some fighters, I think it's good to come in early, right? And train US and stuff like that. But right now, for the past maybe 4 days, I've been talking to like 6 different Japanese fighters about training in US. We did the estimates and stuff like that. And right now, planes are very expensive, during the COVID.
I meant to ask, I saw on your Instagram, you were constantly like posting apartments for Mizuki.
Yeah, for Mizuki and Naoki, because Mizuki's coming back August 15th. And Naoki, after the next fight, I'm thinking about bringing him back.
Okay.
And because with COVID in Manhattan, rents are really cheap. They're offering like 2-3 month free kind of stuff.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, but that's going to change from September because the school season starts.
Yeah, so you got to get them and then get locked into a deal before they change the prices.
Anyway, but those are interesting posts, right? I put in, isn't it very expensive?
Yeah. They're super expensive. Yeah, and they're tiny apartments.
Actually, I went to this one apartment in Soho, 400 square feet, right? And there's a light, tiny kitchen. There's only 2 stoves, little kitchen. It was $5,400 a month.
I saw you posted one where it reminded me of a college dorm room when there was like a ladder to a loft area where you slept. I was like, oh my god! No.
Right. And then at the window, there's nothing. It's all darkness at the window. Yeah. Anyway, so I think training in US, I think it's ideal sometimes, but it's actually very costly.
Yeah.
I mean,
but he's an exciting prospect going back to SASUKE.
Yes.
And I hope the best. I want to see him keep winning. And I want to see him do well in the good. So I just want to see him do it correctly.
Right. And actually, he's managed by Mr. Ui, who used to manage Hiro Nakai and stuff. So it's not like he's a novice in dealing with the UFC. So pretty sure they're reaching out to UFC to see what's going on,
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about this. Since we were talking about Shooto, Abema, Now, One Championship Atomweight
Yes.
Grand Prix. They did announce the new date.
Yeah, it's a little birthday present to myself.
Mm-hmm.
They have their first all women's event. I think they also have some non-tournament fights on there as well.
Right.
Scheduled for September 3rd, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't announce location. I'm just assuming it's in Singapore.
Right.
And
Singapore, right? Probably. But who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and they also announced a new fighter because even though she won her last fight, Ritu was taken out of the tournament because she lost to B Wen. And now they're bringing in another American girl, which I thought was kind of funny because I thought at first they're kind of marketing the tournament as this like blood sport style, one fighter from every country.
Right.
But now they have 2 Americans in the tournament, so it kind of ruins that motif.
But do you think this is going to happen? Because I'm very concerned about Singapore. I know it's not one's fault or nobody's fault, but that government is very strict about COVID. And
one of the guys in my company is in Singapore, and it's incredibly strict over there.
I bet.
And they'll shut everything down on a it's off.
And I heard they go out at nights and stuff, right? Still, no?
It's very strict, yeah. And my issue with it, and MMA Rising was actually complaining about it as well. They have all these women signed to these contracts that just aren't fighting.
I know.
I mean, it's kind of time flies, especially as a result of the pandemic. You don't think about it, but I mean, Ham Sohi is going on 2 years not fighting. And she's not near the beginning of her career. She's near the end of her career.
See, this is when I want. Everybody has to wonder how do they pay bills, right?
Well, that's just the one FC when one championship. It's all just investors, right? They get fresh investments because they're just hemorrhaging money.
Right. Yeah. But the fighters, how can they make a living if they don't fight for 2 years?
Exactly, because last weekend. Not last week, but they had Victoria Lee fight. But they had another fight with a Chinese fighter. I believe her name is Lin. And MMA Rising, one of like the top WBMA websites, was complaining about it because before she signed with One Championship, she was fighting all the time in China. And then she joined One FC, and it's just like a fight every 2 years.
Right.
I mean, what's going on over there?
Right.
They either love you and give you a ton of fights, or they just put you on the back burner and give you a fight every couple of years and try to build someone else up.
Then they should just release fighters like that so they could seek opportunity outside. But it seems like that's not happening because I'm hearing some guys or girls are asking for release but not getting it kind of stuff, you know?
Well, it seems like the situation where unless you're famous enough to annoy them, they're not going to release you from your contract. Like that's because that's how Vitor Belfort got released. They never even gave him a fight. But now then you got guys like Viviano who's just constantly complaining, and he's not famous enough to get enough attention, so they're just going to let him suffer, I think.
I mean, Viviano, too bad. He's not getting any younger. You know?
No, not at all. And he was so good back when he was in Dream.
Right. But people just kind of forgot about him already at this point, which is too bad, you know?
Ham Sohi's kind of an interesting case because I feel like she's has like one foot out the door where she's essentially wanting to get married and retire anyway. And this is just like her last payday. So we'll see. But
see, one thing I don't understand is what their managers do, because I actually had a couple conversations with our clients who's sitting waiting for a fight. Now it's already August and they're already doing matchmaking on October and November. So I had to talk with all these clients. It's like, dude, you can't sit around anymore. So let's go. Allow me to talk to the other promotion. You know?
Yeah.
Let me talk to them because I can get your fight in October, November. Otherwise, you'll end up getting 0 fight this year.
Well, they've had problems
about that, but what they do, right?
Well, because at least in Japan, they had like this thing now where I feel like Itsuki must have been complaining a lot because she wanted to fight.
Right.
And so they got her a fight in Shooto. So at least in Japan, they have the opportunity where they have fighters, they can let them fight in Shooto.
But they don't get the same amount of purse.
No, absolutely not.
No.
Plus, they don't have that in other countries. Like they have a ton of fighters who are sitting around waiting, doing nothing. Now, their benefit, a lot of their fighters are from like third world countries where I imagine the paychecks they get can last a while. But in Japan and places like that, it's not going to fly.
Yeah, but that's still right. That's not fair to some fighters.
Not at all.
No. In the third world, you're supposed to make money, so maybe you can come and train in the US kind of stuff, right? Invest themselves and get better. But Well, that's too bad, but I hope this one championship will happen though, because
Yeah.
I'm hoping to put my clients into those shows as well. But you know,
Yeah. Well, I hope the tournament's a huge success. I love what they're doing with it.
right?
And,
Right.
I may not approve of a lot of their business practices, but they sign a bunch of great fighters, and I love the way that they develop local talent.
Right.
So I'd love to see the show be a big success.
Right. Exactly. Now, let's talk about real quickly. Talk about now. One Championship also has been very active in Japan.
Mhm.
They have been recruiting a lot of Japanese fighters, including Olympic gold medalists and stuff like that.
So I have a question for you, and I
Yeah.
want to soundboard it off of you. ONE FC had a giant, but in their opinion, they had a giant event in Japan a couple years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I feel like they invited everybody to that event.
Everybody.
And,
Right.
and so all of these Japanese people that are winning gold medals, all of a sudden pictures are popping up of them at this ONE FC event.
Yeah.
And so do you think ONE FC, One Championship, reached out to all these aspiring Olympic athletes before they were famous and invited them to the event?
I think Abema TV is almost like a full partnership with ONE, and it's part of their scheme to like try to promote the event. So this photo is sister and brother duo of Abe, who just won the judo Olympic gold. So
my theory is, because these two are brother and sister, I think they're going to become huge, like darling stars of the Olympics.
Sure.
It's a brother-sister gold medal combo.
Right. But are they going to come to MMA?
Now, they've expressed no interest in it outside of going to this event. And I don't think she will, because Japanese judo, especially with the women, they'll go to 2 or 3 Olympics. I mean, this is her first Olympics.
Right.
So she'll make more money in judo than she will in One Championship.
Oh, of course. She'll
especially as a gold medalist.
And stuff like that in Japan too, right?
Right. So she'll follow the footpath of Saudi Yoshida and people like that. I know she's a wrestler, but there is a judoka who's
interested, right?
What?
Who has shown interest?
Has shown a lot of interest,
right?
And he also, what's his name? Takada, is that his name?
Yeah, Takada, right?
Yeah, and he has expressed interest. He's done collaboration videos,
right,
with fighters. Takato, I'm sorry, Takato, and he was in like a Ayaka Miura, because she has judo. So they did a video together where he had MMA gloves on, and he's done some other collaborations. And then he popped into Shinya Aoki's Instagram Live and talked about wanting to fight for RIZIN. And I think there's actually pictures of him sitting front row at RIZIN with Sakakibara. So, I mean, I think it's more than an interest. I think he's spoken to people. Like, I imagine if he's saying stuff like this, it's already been worked out behind.
I think so too. And he's already, talking to Aoki like this. But Aoki is not really with the RIZIN clan. He's with One Championship.
True, but Aoki's such a loud guy that if you go to his platform and say it, people will notice.
Well, here's what it is. I think RIZIN would love to have those gold medal winners. So as One Championship. Now, I think since ONE has Abema TV as a partner, and Abema is the second largest ad agency in Japan, they have actually ability to find a good endorsement for athletes. So I think the only way maybe Abema and ONE could win this war on scoring Olympic gold medalists if it's Abema can come through with the national sponsors.
And that'd be big, because I brought up the Ayaka Miura video because he was wearing ONE gloves in the video. Which those might have just been her gloves, or it was at Ryo Chonen's gym, so that's why they're wearing ONE gloves.
Right.
I don't want to read too much into it, but
exactly,
it makes you think.
Right. I mean, no. I mean, they are. I mean, obviously, Aoki, Chona, they're more closer with One Championship, so as Abema TV. So it's like in Japan's right now, sort of like Abema ONE versus RIZIN, and Abema ONE is they have a Shooto, and Pancras sort of in the middle between, and Deep is under RIZIN,
If he fights for RIZIN, especially after the Olympics in Tokyo, I mean, he's instant Fuji television
star.
Yeah, whoever they put him against a guy who doesn't know what he's doing, and make a ton of money and build him up.
Japan is very interesting because I found this stats that majority of Japanese people still watch regular television, not the streaming company. Now, I saw the stats on how people actually really even trust television, right? In America, it's like 25% trust, 75% don't trust television. but Japan has the highest rate. The viewers, 65% trust on national television.
I 100% believe that, just based off the conversations I had.
Oh my God! Like, it's obviously some of the news in Japan is controlled by the government, or to do it and to care of the government. But still, they believe that. So, which means my point is that although Abema TV is big and they're geared towards the younger viewer or whatever, but to be famous in Japan, be on national television is the way to do it.
Well, I mean, to support what you're saying,
yeah.
Japan's a huge country, but if you look at these fighters' social media numbers, it doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't.
You're like, how does someone with 40,000 followers? I mean, that's a lot for a Japanese fighter.
Mm-hmm.
But then you hear the name recognition. You're like, everybody knows who this person is. Why doesn't he have 20 million Twitter followers?
Right.
Normal people don't use it. Normal people aren't using, or if they use social media, they aren't following people. They just have a private account and they just type the name in. Because you'll remember, like, I think it was called Mixi, was the old social media.
Right.
Japanese people in general are super obsessed with their privacy, especially online.
Yep.
And on Mixi, they all had fake names and fake profile pictures and no identifying details, because they're all so worried about like your work or someone finding you or anything. So I think a lot of people just follow people without following them online.
Right. I mean, exactly. Number doesn't add up. Makes sense, because even like Japanese idol singers and models who has like millions of like followers. It's so funny. My journalist did a little research on it. Like 1/3 of their followers happen to be from Indonesia, kind of stuff.
Yes.
So obviously it's right. It's shaky, you know.
Yeah, I mean, any fighter in Japan that has a ton of social media followers, you find out most of those people aren't Japanese. It's like Itsuki Hirata has a ton of social media followers, but they're all like foreigners. They're all non-Japanese people.
Right.
Japanese people just don't follow people on social media.
Right, but again, that's Itsuki's case. I think it's a lot to do with the one championship too, right? It's probably.
Well, I mean, but she, I mean, I just use her as an example because she has a lot of social media followers. Whereas, like, you'd see someone like, say, like a Shizuka Sugiyama or like a Rin Nakai, and you'd be like, oh, they probably have 100, 200,000 followers. And you go to their page, and it's like, oh, Rin Nakai has 8,000 followers.
Right, like,
but everyone talks about her all the time.
I think Lee and me has almost the same number of followers. But here's what it is, though. When you look at the like button, that's when you can tell they're really following you or not. Because I could see some idol who has 20,000 followers, but they get only the 1 or 2 likes. While Rin Nakai, she gets a lot of likes, right? So it's obviously actual active followers are following.
I do a lot of market analysis at my work, and it's just when you're looking at social media accounts, you can definitely tell who's paid. It's not to bring up one championship.
Right.
But when you look at the fact that they have like millions of followers, but then their YouTube video will have 1 comment, just doesn't add up to these being legitimate followers.
Comments and number of likes, it doesn't add up. So
yeah.
But anyway, we have this actually question from the viewers. I read it. Yoshida, a long time to get back in the judo communities. Good books after his MMA career. Any truth to that? Not the Yoshida-san, but Yoshida took a while. But remember Makoto Takizawa, who fought in Pride? He went back to judo, but it took him a long time to get back to.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about this, Jamie, but what I would say is I could see that happening just because I feel like judo and karate and things like that would think that they're above MMA and that you shouldn't go there. But I mean, he was doing Olympic commentary for the judo at the Tokyo Olympics. So I think he's back in the good graces. Right. And he's actually the head coach for the gym that coached a couple of the gold medalists. So
he's back into the judo community, obviously. But one guy you can obviously is Ishii, who was the gold medal winner in Peking, but he's lifetime banned from judo right now. It will take him a long time.
Is he a bad example? Because doesn't he also say a bunch of stupid stuff?
That too, right? He did criticize, Yeah,
I will say, do you think it would be if this is the case? I think it would have been different if Yoshida went to MMA and was undefeated and didn't lose any of those fights. I think because he lost fights, judo people got upset.
Yeah, exactly. It's a sad story, but judo people do get upset when you. I won't name. I know there's one fighter who was a judo champion made a debut, right? And it's a girl, and her husband was a judo manager for big university. Now on a debut fight, she lost. Close fight, decision. Oh my God, husband got so mad and lectured her all night. She couldn't even go to bed. So he's like, you just ruined Judo's reputation. You know, like he just was so upset about that. But like, it's a different sport. It's like a ping pong
different.
player try to play against tennis player or whatever. Like it's just different sports, but they take a huge.
I cannot reiterate how big of a deal judo is here.
Yeah.
The Olympic coverage so far has been just 90% judo, 10% other stuff.
Right.
And they had this team judo for the first time, and France beat Japan. So France won the gold, and Japan got the silver. It was like there's national mourning. It was like Japan had lost a war. Like my wife was saying, like, I feel like we just lost the Olympics. It's just like people. It's a big deal, the judo over here. So it's taken very seriously.
Yeah. But here's what it is. I wish, it's part of the reason, I'll tell this on the record, part of the reason MMA fighters in Japan are not developing well as the other countries is because guys from judo or trainers from boxing, they have so much problem trying to get involved with MMA. They basically say, no, you're not allowed to. But why though, right? You're athletes or trainer, coach, you should be able to do whatever the heck you want.
It's because there's like a negative. Is there a negative image associated with MMA in Japan because of pride and the whole Yakuza thing?
That too, because to this day, some of the so-called underground MMA show fighters and promoters are getting arrested here and there, right? And headline always says
and sponsors
arrested. Oh, and the sponsors, right? That's the problem. Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Since you mentioned, we talk about follow-up on TDT scandal.
Yeah.
Now, we have found out that he went to see UFC Houston.
Yes.
And he took one of the round card girl.
Yeah, he took not a rising round girl, another promotions round girl with him.
Shooto round girl, right?
Shooto, yes. And
now she's not actually work anymore. Is that how it works? I mean,
she posted a tweet about how, I'm going to call this the Dice team sweeps everything under the rug. Is what I'm calling this, or the MMA community sweeps everything under the rug,
right?
Much like the baseball doping scandal when I was younger. But all of a sudden, she's no longer working as a round girl for Shooto. They're making her take a break.
So she's taking leave of absence indefinitely, then basically.
Yes,
right?
yes. And there's actually video footage of him arriving. The whole thing about this guy is people say they didn't know what's going on. It's very obvious he's been being investigated for at least 2 years.
Right.
And when he returned to Japan,
those two, right?
Yeah, when he returned to Japan with her, they're in the airport. There's news people there filming them. And this is before he got arrested. And then a year ago, journalists went to his house and waited outside. When he came outside, they kind of popped out and tried to ask him about the cryptocurrency. Like, are you involved with this cryptocurrency group?
Yeah, right.
And so she deletes her Twitter and posts this comment. The Dice team's website gets taken down. They also had a website, like a news outlet that's kind of working for the Dice team. They had a bunch of interviews with him. They had 9 interviews, I believe, all taken down. And so the Dice team is essentially erasing anything about the boss talking or people that are associated with him.
Right.
And
I think besides myself, there's one guy, Mr. Suzuki from Team Alive, tweeted that he has the TDT logo on my cage, but I've never received any money from him. But he's not erasing logo from the cage. I'm like, oh, what's going on, right?
Well, I was laughing because Japanese MMA fans, the Japanese media may not be reporting about it, but Japanese MMA fans have picked up on it. Yeah. I saw one guy tweet a picture of Horiguchi, and he actually blurred out the Dice team logo on his shirt.
Oh, God.
So people have noticed it. And Sayaki, the Deeps, had actually spoke about it recently on YouTube. And it was kind of a funny conversation because they also mentioned you, but it was more funny because he was kind of doing this whole hey, they sponsor a lot of people, and everybody looked into it. Nobody found anything. And the guy interviewing him, the comedian, it was his show, kind of called him out and was like, well, I was suspicious of the Dice team 2 years ago. All the fans have been constantly asking, who is the Dice team? What do? They seem suspicious. And if they're on TV, if this guy is on TV wearing the Dice team, being questioned about crypto scams, a simple Google search or something should have revealed that this guy was up to something. So it's kind of what I think Sayaki said it best when he said, no one's going to come forward and talk about this until after the prosecution. And even then, I imagine they'll always sweep it under the rug.
Well, here's what I think. I think they're reporting that the damage is like $60 million, whatever, in US.
Yeah.
However, I think it has to be more than that. There's 4 guys involved, more people involved, right? And they're doing the operations and the way they're living and blowing up the money. I think it's more scams. I think they have done something.
Oh, yeah. So this isn't their only scam, because if you look at it, they've been involved in a bunch of different stuff.
Exactly.
Like, he had this thing called the Dice Wallet, and then he had a bunch of things called the Dice. They had their own crypto coin. That was kind of a scam. And but I will say the interesting thing was Saiki did mention how they were approached by them. Was that he was in Osaka doing an event where King Reina and Kana Asakura were there, but I believe at the time were managed by Deep. And this guy showed up, kind of started talking to them. He asked if he could come to a show, and then he just essentially said, "Hey, I'd love to sponsor this show." So that's how it kind of came together. But I mean, with my rough Googling skills, a lot of these articles about him are several years old.
Yeah.
So it just seems like if you would have searched him, you would have found something.
Yeah, exactly. He would have found it easy. But again, I think you're innocent till you get proven guilty.
Plus, I mean, as long as those checks are clearing, I mean, I know some people are upset, but I mean, it's not like they're taking advantage. I don't think that I don't think anybody knew what they were doing. They probably just knew that they were a sketchy company.
Right.
And as long as those checks were clearing, people didn't care.
Right. I mean, and the money they were offering was not that big too. So people thought, okay, it's just little like a pocket money kind of thing. So it's not that big.
It's like a genius scheme, because it seems like this guy likes MMA, and he realized the best way to be like a super MMA fan is to just pay a bunch of fighters a little bit of money.
Right.
And next thing you know, you're like the guy from Monster taking pictures with them backstage and acting like your best friends.
Out the fighters.
Yeah, exactly.
But at least this guy paid, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But there's one guy who actually didn't pay and got busted once, and his name was RIZIN Daisuki.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
that wonderful man.
For those who don't know RIZIN Daisuki, this is a guy who claimed that he has terminal cancer, so he needs some gift, and he approached many fighters, got the shorts and gloves and whatever, and found out that he's not sick at all.
Right, and he's also wealthy.
Very.
I think pissed off people because like, you could have been buying this stuff from us. Why are you begging? And I think the most important thing to iterate about this guy is he contacts the fighters directly on social media, and he tries to like guilt them into giving him stuff. When that doesn't work, he becomes very aggressive and persistent, and he almost like tries to blackmail people. Like, weren't there messages from him like saying like, "Oh, you're not going to give a guy with cancer or something? Well, how do you think your sponsors or people would react if they found out that you're not nice to people with cancer?" And I think he just is so annoying that people give him stuff to shut him up. And if people are unaware, there's a fighter for Deep Jewels. Her name's Kate Lotus. She's
supposed to be
doing karate her whole life, but she's a fitness model. She's very attractive, and based on that attractiveness, she's gotten a lot of media attention.
Right. So
apparently, this RIZIN Daisuki was just harassing her, messaging her nonstop, messaging her gym. Her gym actually tweeted out, they were like, "RIZIN Daisuki Mendokusai." They were like, "This guy's so annoying."
Oh god.
And he was so annoying. They actually reached out to Saeki and were like, "This guy won't leave us alone. He wants to be a supporter. What should we do?" And Saeki was like, "Don't let this guy be a supporter." He was like, "Just ignore this guy." And then Saeki called RIZIN to speak about him, because the weird thing about RIZIN Daisuke is RIZIN knows who he is.
We know, yeah. I mean, research, yeah.
The comedian was joking. He was just like, "How is this guy? The people know what he looks like. Like, how is this guy still around?" And it turns out he's using alternate social media accounts. He's making new identities, and he's just harassing people under new names and different profiles.
And it's really sad because actually he owns a couple like restaurants, right?
Yeah.
And I guess it's all operated by a wife. The wife is a very hard worker, working all the time. But he's at home doing all these things, you know?
Well, it's just weird because I always joke and laugh because every once in a while, RIZIN or Deep Jewels will do like kind of like a charity auction, or they'll like, I think Deep Jewels and Deep, they actually auction off all the fight gloves after the fights. I think they give some of the money to the fighters.
Right.
And if there's ever like an absurd price paid for one, I'm like, oh, RIZIN Daisuki's been around. So the problem is
he does a lot money. Yeah, because even RIZIN show too, he spends good about maybe 10 grand per show on tipping alone.
Yeah.
So
he spends so much money that people, it's kind of like a slap on the wrist. They're just kind of like, stop making waves. Stop making news.
Right. But
he's not going to stop.
He's not going to stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got the money. He's got the time to do it.
Yeah. Once you pretend to have terminal cancer and people catch you and you don't stop then, I feel like you're never going to stop.
No, but this guy actually had a little problem. He had a seizure and he has this a handicap certificate, which will allow him to park on a handicap spot, and he's not supposed to. But again, if you have that, then you cannot rent an apartment, and you can't open your bank account with your co-signer. There's a lot of problems with that too. But I tell you this: if you became a certified handicap person, in Japanese law, you don't have to pay any inheritance tax, 0. That's why he has a lot of money. He inherited fortune from her aunt, and then
didn't he also become disabled?
Right, disabled.
Very, very soon to him inheriting money.
Yeah, I mean, I did the whole thing. I had to investigate on this guy because I got to get my stuff back from him, And I actually even hired a PI, and I made him sit in front of his house. I have a photo of him receiving a package during the time when he was supposed to getting surgery. so that's when I realized, okay, I'm gonna have to go after this person. But right now, what he's doing is not illegal, right?
Yeah.
He's only approaching, try to sponsor fighters, so I can't do anything about it. But
can we also just reiterate how crazy this is that he has a lot of money. He spends tens of thousands of dollars a show.
Mm-hmm.
All of these fighters would be super happy to have this guy sponsoring them.
Sure, right.
If he didn't send them weird messages all the time, harassing them.
See, I don't understand about this guy. He has a couple restaurants, so he could legitimately sponsor fighters, just like a TDT. He's more legit business because his restaurants are legit. It's at the zoo, public places, that kind of stuff. So, I don't get that mentality. Why can't he just sponsor a fighter?
I mean, I go to a ramen shop near my house. It's called Ryuchan, and I think they actually sponsor some of the Sonic Squad guys.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, they sponsor a couple athletes. They sponsor like a golfer, some boxers, some MMA fighters, and they just have like their pictures proudly above the ramen shop. They talk about them when people come in. But I mean, I feel like fighters would love to have a local business supporting them.
Yeah, actually, some of the package deal I do with my client sponsors, we do offer like a fight-worn shorts autographed by a fighter, and I put much prices on it. But shops love that. They put it up on a wall and stuff like that.
I mean, you could, if for like a low-level fighter, you probably get that for a couple $100. I mean, this guy's throwing 20,000 around. He could just sponsor people. I don't understand it, but whatever. This guy, he's nuts. And unlike the American equivalent of himself, he's never going to go away.
No, he's never going to go away. Yeah. But again, Mr. Josh Fabia, whatever, went away from Diego Sanchez. So
well, yeah. But that's a very different situation.
I know. Now, let's quickly talk about Deep 103. He has announced 2 fight cards. Yeah. Fujita. Yeah. The flyweight.
September. We said September's going to be nuts.
Right.
So much going on in September.
I think September and October is going to be nuts too, because I think RIZIN is going to add shows, right?
Yeah.
And I have a feeling because of the limited dates available venues, because of Olympics and stuff like that, I have a feeling either Debo, Shooto, Pancras, whatever, some show is going to happen on the exact same day. Because it has to.
There's so many events happening. There's only so many weekends. It's going to happen.
Right. So it has to happen. And I think RIZIN's adding a couple shows, right? So with RIZIN and Deep, they're going to have a lot of fighters fighting on those shows. Yeah. And I can't reveal this, but it seems like because of pandemic, a lot of fighters sort of kind of gave up on fighting outside Japan for this year. So many fighters now wants to fight for RIZIN, because that's the only big show they have in Japan. And a lot of fighters.
Good for RIZIN.
Right. And also, actually, it's interesting for Deep because they're sort of like a minor league, right?
Yeah.
So you start seeing a fighter from another promotion in Japan, like Shooto, Zesto, whatever that is. The champion guys are coming into Deep. Yeah. And that's what's happening right now. So This is going to be pretty interesting, you know?
I mean, the pandemic, I mean, a lot of terrible things obviously happened, but it did provide some interesting opportunities for some of these companies.
Right.
And they all reacted to it differently. Like Pancrase kind of shut down and waited it out, where Deep kind of was more like, we got to figure out a way to keep this going.
Right.
And I think they've benefited a lot from keeping it going.
Shooto kept it going too. So it's K1, right? Basically, when you really look back, K1 is one who basically ignored the government order.
Yeah. They made a lot of newspapers for that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Now, let's talk about this. King Reina lost in Shooto boxing. Did you see this fight?
I didn't see the fight because it's kind of this crazy thing where I love shoot boxing, but they have like this girls' S Cup every now and then.
Yeah.
And it was a lot bigger back in like 2010, 11, 12. But they had what they're calling the girls' S Cup Road Tournament last weekend because it was on Thursday, actually. But it only had 5 fights on it. And the pay-per-view was like $30, I think. And I wasn't going to spend $30 to watch 5 fights. Yeah. 2 of which I think were amateur. So it was like 3 professional fights and 2 amateur fights. I just wasn't going to pay $30 for that. But they had King Reina fight this girl named Mina. Mina's been fighting for shoot boxing forever. She's kind of like stepped up when Reina and Mio left. And I thought I kind of brought it up. You had forgotten. She actually fought Mizuki Inoue once, and Mizuki TKO'd her. But I mean, this seems like shoot boxing has always been willing to throw money to bring in other fighters to fight their fighters. Yeah. Especially the MMA versus shoot boxing kind of crossover they love to do. And this event was filled with that. I mean, Megumi Sugimoto fought on it, who's an MMA fighter. King Reina fought Mina. And going into this, he was like, well, shoot boxing wants Mina to win. And so they just brought a really big name over in King Reina. And King Reina in her last fight showed that her striking skills, and she's tough and she hits hard, but I mean, she just runs forward and eats shots. And against a kickboxer, that's not going to go well. And she lost the fight, I believe, by decision.
Right, decision, yeah. It's
but,
hard. It's a different rule set, you know?
Yeah, but I also think, I mean, I feel like King Reina has almost entered this like pro wrestling kind of attitude where she's not a shoot boxer. I don't think she cared if she won. Right. She was there to kind of build her brand and her character. And I think that's more of what she was going for.
Right. Now, did she make weight on this one? I mean, what weight class was it? Oh, 65 kilos.
65, yeah, she made weight. I was kind of surprised. I didn't realize Mina was that big. But she must have gained weight because when she fought Mizuki, I mean, it wasn't at 65 kilos.
Right. Now, but is Mizuki the only one who won back-to-back? Or is Reina ever won back-to-back?
I mean, Reina's won like 4 of them, so I imagine one of them was back-to-back. But King Reina, I mean, Mizuki's was interesting because they had this fighter named Ai Takahashi, and she was kind of like a favorite fighter of Caesar Takeshi's. And they were obsessed with her beating Mizuki.
Yeah, I know.
And they fought 3 times. And Mizuki won every time. Just kept making the fight happen.
Hey, remember, Mizuki entered into the S Cup with fractured, like a stress fracture. So
I will say about this shoot boxing event, one interesting development was there's a shoot boxer. Her name is Misaki. And she has been publicly talking about wanting to fight Reina.
Reina, yeah.
And she's brought it up at her last fight. She brought it up at this fight. And she actually met Reina and talked about it after the fight. I believe they took a picture together. And more importantly, Shoot Boxing published an article about it. And so it's not just her saying it anymore. Shoot Boxing is now creating the narrative that Misaki wants to fight Reina, which to me is a big deal because it's one thing if a fighter's saying it, but once the promotion starts writing articles about it, that makes me think that this is going to be a fight that's going to happen in shoot boxing.
Yeah, you know, because Reina needs an opponent, obviously, right?
Yeah.
She's not getting any fights now.
And I mean, when she retires, I mean, I saw on Instagram Live, someone was talking to her and like, please don't retire. And she's like, I'm not going to retire anytime soon. I have a couple fights left. But I mean, she will fight in shoot boxing again. Well, it's like inevitable that she will fight in shoot boxing again.
Just like how Tenshin has to fight for Rise. That's just how it works. Yeah.
And it looks like Misaki might be the person they're building up to be that opponent.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out because in Japan, talking a lot doesn't really mean a lot unless the promotion starts getting behind it and retweeting those tweets and writing their own articles. Then it's essentially a done deal in my mind.
Actually, it is done. It's almost a confirmation. They're already doing that work. So all right. So at the end, let's talk about last topic. Rin Nakai, the update. I love talking about her. Now,
okay, interesting. I don't know if you know this. Do you know that she was offered a Deep Jewels fight and turned it down?
Yes, I mean, Saiki revealed that. I wanted to talk about it, right? He's been offering her a fight, but she turned it down. But she's complaining to the public that somebody's like blocking her for getting fight and wants to sue this person, blah, 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 right?
He offered her a big fight. He offered her a fight on their 20th anniversary show, which makes me think it must have been King Reina versus Sugiyama.
Probably, yeah.
That must have been the fight they were trying to make because Sugiyama ended up fighting a fighter not at her level.
Exactly.
So they must have won. Aoi Kuriyama from Smoker's Gym.
Right.
And so they must have wanted Sugiyama versus Rin Nakai, which would have been a huge fight. And Sayaki seemed as confused as everyone else. He was like, I don't know what's going on over there. She confuses me. I don't know why she turned the fight down. She said it was bad timing. But, I mean, I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, I imagine Rin Nakai almost has like an open invitation to half these promotions where they would love to promote a fight with her on it.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
they're not like actively conspiring, like, let's make sure she never fights again. They would, we would love Rin
no,
Nakai would sell a ton of tickets.
I think RIZIN, Deep, or even maybe not Pancras, they had her for Shooto, one, whatever. I think they all love to have her. I think
they're all like, the second chief joins and does a fight for us. We're talking Gong articles. We're talking Yahoo News. We're talking everyone is going to talk about the fact she's fighting for us. Everyone would love to have it happen. So who knows what's going on. Now she seems obsessed with fighting abroad is my more recent theory.
That's only the recent though. She's only been tweeting about how she wants to go to UFC and how can I do this, blah, 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 right? She should discuss with her management.
Well, I think, but recently I think because there's been a lot of changes with her recently. But I imagine the old Usami method was just like, no, maybe Deep wanted to sign her to a contract, like a 1-year contract. Like, no long-term contracts. Or Usami had crazy demands.
Usami has this I don't know, he's so paranoid about long-term contract. Anything more than like 2 fights, he doesn't want to do that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's worked out so well for them. I mean, she's living off of Don Quixote coupons.
Exactly. She's always been like asking fans to this one, like she can't even afford to buy what is it, like a detergent?
Some fan gave her money, so she used the money to buy like vegetables and a bra. It's like, what is going on over there? Now, I will say, she looks ripped. She looks stronger than I've ever seen her before. She looks absolutely jacked. And
but again, is this body well built for MMA fighters? Is that a body good for throwing strikes? I really don't think so.
Especially since she needs to get down to 115 to be a realistic international fighter.
Right. I mean, she was fighting at 115. I don't know what the hell she's doing now, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that whole 135 thing was absolutely insane. Right. Then she called out Miesha Tate again. I mean, wasn't that fight incredibly one-sided? Like, I don't know why she was that fight. It was
incredibly one-sided, and she has zero reason to take the rematch if I were Miesha, you know? But it's too bad, though, because she is a talent, and they should give her, I mean, Usami should get her active, period.
Even if she wasn't fighting MMA right now, at least, I mean, if she went back to judo, she could make make a living as a judo instructor.
Probably.
And she was a high-level judo person before she was injured. So it's just like this weird limbo of just training for MMA but not fighting.
I hate to say
doesn't seem to be doing well for her.
If she shows any interest in pro wrestling, all promotion in Japan will be interested in her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So she has a lot of way to make money too, instead of like begging for some gift certificate from the fans.
Also, one of those weird things where her social media numbers don't really portray the fact that like people know who she is. Like if you ask casual MMA fans in Japan, they know who Rin Nakai is.
Right.
So, but
again, she has almost the same number of followers that I do. So that's not like we both got like 9,000, right? So I mean,
right.
Yeah, I mean, but again, it's too bad she's not getting any younger, you know.
No.
And
she hasn't fought in forever, and she hasn't had like a real fight in a long time.
Right, and she could like pipe up a women's MMA in Japan too. So it's just too bad, you know.
I mean, I think a fight with her and Sugiyama would be big news.
Big news, right?
Yeah, because Rin Nakai is also obsessed with fighting Kana Watanabe. It's not going to happen. Kana Watanabe doesn't care, and she's moved on and is now getting paid $60,000 a fight.
This is what I'm hearing, though. Actually, Kana Watanabe wanted to fight Rin Nakai. She said yes to that, but Rin Nakai is the one who said no. Ended up saying no. Maybe something happened. You know?
Do you think Rin Nakai is just a really bad negotiator who thinks if she plays difficult, she'll get a better deal and doesn't realize that the promoters just leave?
Yeah, I actually don't think Rin Nakai doesn't talk to promotion at all. It's all Usami anyway. So we have to ask Usami all these questions. Why? Not her, right? But I can do this right now. I can review this right now. When we got an offer from Mizuki to fight in UFC, actually the first offer went to Kana Watanabe. But Kana Watanabe said no because she said we were verbally confirmed to fight Rin Nakai in RIZIN. So I would love to take that offer, but I can't because I already verbally confirmed.
So Rin Nakai royally screwed over Kana Watanabe, who could be fighting for the UFC right now.
Exactly. But for me, that was good. So all right, then let's put Mizuki in.
So Mizuki was like, "Yeah, I'll fight at 125. I don't care."
Yeah. But no, so I know for the fact that Sayaki already told, publicly he hasn't been offering her fight. And I know for the fact that RIZIN offered her Kana Watanabe fight. So there's no excuse for Rin Nakai to not fight at this point.
She loves to play the victim, it seems. But it's just no one's a victim. You're just making yourself a victim. All these promotions, I mean, KSW wanted you, Pancrase wanted you, Deep wanted you, RIZIN wanted you, the UFC wanted you, and you just burn every bridge you cross.
Walker would be interested in her, and I'm pretty sure Ray Safo would be interested in her, right? I mean, they don't have that weight division, but
she is the fighter that Scott Coker lays awake at night dreaming about. She is exactly the type of fighter he loves.
So I just don't see why, and she should be able to make money. I mean, immediately to pay for her at least a year worth of living expenses.
I would almost rather see her in Bellator, because the UFC I feel like would rein her in and not let her be her crazy self, where Bellator would let her wear the insane outfits. Exactly. Like if you want to wear a G-string and have a whip and come out? Knock yourself out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what UFC RIZIN. She came out in like a G-string or the whip. I'm like, what the hell?
But again, that's what maybe the other promotion needs, right? Because they can't be all the same as UFC anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? So I mean, I would love to see her in Bellator, and I don't know why that cannot be happening, because the RIZIN could easily talk to Bellator, obviously, right?
Yeah, I mean, she could easily fight at 125 too. So
yeah, they have the division. It's not like it's the deepest division ever, right? They need more talent. So
exactly.
Well, let's hope Mr. Usami is listening to this, or somebody
and knows English.
Right. Well, but he's tweeting in English. I saw some English post on Rin Nakai, which was,
oh my god, those tweets were so weird. That one tweet that was like, even if I die, I cannot die unless I fight in the UFC or something. It was like a weird tweet.
Yeah, I think it's a direct translation, little Google translation with a little friends. Yeah,
exactly what it was. Yeah.
But again, I'm hoping that something would happen to her soon, at least by New Year's Eve, right? I mean, oh my god.
I mean, it feels like it's building up to something. Like she's tweeting nonstop about Rise. She's tweeting about all these promotions. She apparently has new management. If something doesn't happen by the end of the year, it's just like, what are you doing? Why are you bothering us on social media?
I mean, same management as Horiguchi and Kana Sakura. So that means they must have a leverage on RIZIN. So what the heck? What can make that happen, right? So I think it's all up to her and her coach. Yeah.
Maybe if people stop donating money to her, she'll have to take a fight.
No, but I kind of like to see her in RIZIN. So let's hope that's going to happen. And maybe we'll see her in Bellator next year, All right. So
closing comment I just saw on Twitter.
Yeah.
I saw that Kate Lotus is training with Mika Nagano.
Oh, yeah. They both
Deep Jules took pictures.
Pretty girls, huh? Yeah.
Like they're not even hiding the type of marketing they're using now. It's like we're gonna get all the
the
old hot girls and the new hot girls, put them all together.
They can even do pro wrestling together too. Who knows?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, I saw that.
Let's finish it up. So we're done for this week, and I guess we'll be back in 2 weeks again.
Yep.
And by then, I should have more news on the new fight card for RIZIN, right?
Yeah, we'll be able to talk about all the craziness that's going to happen in September.
Yeah. All right. So I see you in 2 weeks, Charlie.
Yep. See you in 2 weeks.
All right. Have a nice night, I guess.
Yeah. Have a good day.
All right, see you later.
Later.